So we've got our nemesis, we've got dragons, we've got Slard, we've got dimensional rifts, we've got Uther's watch, we've got everything. Now let's start playing. Can we start playing yet? No, not really. There are a few things we need. Small, little things. Like, a world. Hello and welcome to this episode of Campaign Creator. My name is Guy and of course we are going through creating our campaign. Now if you have not watched steps 1 through 3 yet, I would suggest that you pause this video and go and watch steps 1, 2 and 3 first. It's all about creating your campaign with me whilst the video is playing. So you will notice down below that there are timestamps which allow you to flit through the video as you so choose if you want to see just the salient points. However, I would encourage you to write and create your campaign as you're watching this video, so that by the time the video is over, not only have you learnt something new about the campaign and creating epic stories for your players, but you also actually have something tangible that you can take away with you. It's kind of like time maximizing sort of idea. So you will see me rambling my way through all of these videos as we go along. Today what we're going to be doing is we're going to take that map that we created last week, which was going to invest our players and potentially their characters into our game, and we're going to incorporate that into the world. And I wanted to show you an aspect about World Anvil which I particularly like in terms of managing our campaign and managing that world that we are based in. So let's bring it up, and previously I cooked it in the oven for 45 minutes, and here's one that I made before. Haha! So here we are, Uther's Dragons, our World Anvil interface. Now I should emphasize here that I have the subscription to World Anvil, so I've got all of the bits and pieces. It is available free, however, if you so choose, and of course you are welcome to use any other type of world aggregating software that you might find, even if it is pieces of paper. And I'm looking around behind me for my pieces of paper, and I realize that I still have games that I run where I have run them on paper. It is something that I grew up with, but it is also about advancing and using more modern day technology. So what we're going to be looking at is we're going to be looking at adding in that map. So I'm going to go down here to the option of map adding. I will add a map. I'm going to browse through to our map of Uther's watch. Normally this would be multiple layers, but I did not make multiple layers. I'm going to call this Uther's watch, and this is the Grim Tower in the far north. No, Grim Towers are always in the far north, aren't they? They're always in the far north. Let's say a Grim Tower at the furthest reaches of the kingdom. That's a bit more nebulous, and we can come back to it. That's what I like about this, is that we're going to come back to it. Alright, so use commas to separate your tags. Adding tags to any piece of content will help you search for it later. So I'm going to add the tag here of castle. So now when I look for castles, Uther's watch will come up as a castle. Related locations, there aren't any. Related organizations, we haven't made that yet. Related category, well, no, not really, not yet. And weight position, weight in a number that defines in which the item will appear on the list. Well, I don't have anything particularly for that status. I'm going to make it public, so I will create the map. All right, so now it's going to create the map. Now I'm going to show you how this works, because I think it's important. It's not yet what we are going to be talking specifically about in this video, but it forms part of it. So there's that beautiful map that we created in Dungeon Fog. We've now brought it in. Now this is what I particularly like about the map maker within World Anvil, is now I've got my map, but I can add these coordinates. So instead of the more traditional approach of making a map with numbers on the map and then sort of doing a key, room number 1 is this, room number 2 is that, I can set these markers in place. So I can say, all right, well, I always like to number my castles as the PCs might approach the castle. So if they're going to be coming into this particular space, they will probably, and almost no, in no certain circumstances will it ever happen this way, but they will probably come in through the main gate keep. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that. There's the gate keep. That's the first room that they are likely to encounter. I'm going to come down here. It has created these pins for me. The pin selection here, I've got a whole lot of different options to choose from, different types of pins as well. We can really go mad in terms of our options. I'm going to go with, I don't know, there's just so many. Let's just see, PQ. River, Ruin. Ruin, I think, is pretty good. And let's go with Ruin Blue for the pin. It will change once we update it. And that's absolutely fine. And this is the Gate Keep. And the description here is a ruined space. Where the capstan for the drawbridge has long since rusted shut. Ancient banners of Uther's Black Watch. Well, we always have Black Watches. No, let's call them Uther's let's say Silver Lances. Hang on the walls. Now we can go further and further, and what we would normally do is, as we come in, we can actually create a new article for this particular room and link it to it. Now, if we wanted this particular room to have more than just a descriptor, we could create a whole new article where we talk about the traps that are in that particular room and so on. And what it allows us to do, and I'm only going to do it once here in this particular video, so create marker, there we go. And again, you can make it so that it's for a particular group or not. Now we have our marker in place, and you can see there it's used the dungeon marker, which I think is quite nice, and it's made it blue. Now this is the gatekeep. So now when I hover over it, automatically I have got this information available to me. If it was a link to another page, I would have that page's links available, and it could have all of that information. So it all kind of routes itself around and routes itself through, which I think is absolutely fantastic and well worth investing in this particular piece of software. Now I'm going to carry on just marking out all of these different rooms and things. There's nothing specific that I think one really needs to add. Again, this is just a dungeon. I think we said dungeon. Did we say dungeon? No, we said ruin. Ruin, PQRST. You can see my spelling is terrible. Ruin. And we're going to stick with Ruin Blue for this particular pin. And this is the Inner Bailey. The Inner Bailey, or Outer Courtyard, or Upper Courtyard, whatever you want to call it. And then you can go and give descriptions. Now again, with the descriptions, I will always advocate that, and what I do like is that there we go, you can, there we go. Behind me, you can see that there's always a little thumbnail that sort of keeps you updated in terms of what your map is. So when you look at that, I would always advocate that you try and add in some sense engagement. So if you're not going to do a full article based on that particular room, if you're going to do just a section of it, I would say always add in at least a sense each. So an ancient tree grows in the middle of this bailey. Leaves softly drift down and crunch underfoot as it is autumn, and that wonderful aroma of old leaf dust sort of drifts up towards you. The air almost tastes ancient as you wander forward. So you've engaged. You've got walking on leaves with the crunch underneath. So there's this touch, there's sound, there's sight of the old tree, its bare branches reaching up towards the heavens as a supplicant might in prayer to a God who no longer listens. However you want to do it, I would add in some descriptors here so that when you're running the game and you've got this map open, you can then click on it and go through it and get all of these wonderful descriptions as it so happens. So I'm going to do that very quickly. I'm going to create that marker. So now we have our two markers. And so if I go through to viewing the map, what one would actually see when you're actually running the game is now we've got this wonderful map, and as we curse over, we start to get these little descriptions. So it's so much easier, I think anyway, that if you've got this running on a laptop whilst you're running the game, you can then immediately bring up these little descriptors. Now, we didn't put anything for the inner bailey, but here already I can see a ruined space where the capstan for the drawbridge has long since rusted shut. Ancient banners of Uther's silver lancers hang on the walls. So we could then link through, we could click on that, and it would then take us through to the article that is related to that. I wanted to show you that little function because I think it's important. Now that we've got a map, we can start working. Of course, you can link everything in the map to everything else that is around about, and there we go. But now, on to what we need to look at today in order to start building our campaign. And this is where it starts to get exciting. So I'm going to go here back to Uther's Dragons. This is our world. And we're going to start looking at what can we now add in, what can we now do to start working out our campaign. And what that is going to require us to do is we're going to go back again to plot. Now, it is entirely up to you whether you want to create a new plot entry or whether you want to go back to the one that we have already made. I am going to create a new plot entry. And that new plot entry, I am going to title, so not from another campaign that I'm busy running, I am going to title this my campaign breakdown. Because that is exactly what it is. Now, when we come to looking at this, the only thing that I'm particularly interested in, I'm not so interested in the vignette here. I am going to be using principally the substructures, the scenes, as you will, as it is described here in World Anvil. So, when we look at our original story, as a matter of fact, we probably should look at our original story. So I'm going to go back here to the descriptor. You can see it behind me, Uther's Dragons. And the sentence was, Jakar, this large, corpulent woman, wants the kingdom of Uther before the next planetary alignment, but is having difficulty taking it over using vast Slard forces because the protectors of Uther are exceptionally powerful. The kingdom of Uther contains dragon eggs, which Jakar wants, but the eggs will hatch upon the next planetary alignment. So that's why there's that urgency for Jakar to take over the planet. And you can see that it's already started to add in elsewhere our map that we have now already added. So I think that's wonderful to keep track of everything. So that is our sentence. Jakar wants the kingdom of Uther before the next planetary alignment, but is having difficulty using vast Slard forces because the protectors of Uther are exceptionally powerful. So that is our sentence there. I'm not going to close it. I'm going to come back to it. So with our campaign breakdown, there are, in effect, in my opinion anyway, 4 phases that the plot needs to go through. And I'm going to write them up here just to remind myself and to remind you of what those phases are. The first phase is, I call it getting it, or acquiring it, or making it their own. Phase number 1. Phase number 2 is then building it, whatever it might be. Phase number 3 is then testing it, and then phase number 4 is using it, or as I like to call it, ending it / saving it, however you want to do that. So I'm going to take those 4 different types and I'm going to come down here into substructure. I'm going to paste them. So those are the 4 fundamental categories that I believe every campaign should have. Now again, there is a fundamental reason for this. With those 4 phases, each of those phases we can now break down once again, and that is the key process that I use in terms of creating campaigns, is I'm constantly breaking down my campaign from the big picture down into little steps, so that when I change something, when my players change something in the world, it doesn't change the whole thing, it just changes one of the steps, and I look at the repercussions that changing that step has on a smaller chunk rather than on a galactic scale, so that I don't ever get thrown by my players doing something wonderful and unexpected. Those 4 phases, I believe, are generic enough that they can be applied to any campaign type, any genre, any setting, any theme, and still be practical and useful for our purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that idea of Jakar wants the kingdom of Uther before the next planetary alignment, but is having difficulty using it, using the Slard forces, because the protectors of Uther are exceptionally powerful. We're going to take that idea, and now we're going to break it down. So, getting it. How does Jakar plan on getting the kingdom? We know they're using Slard forces, but that's not enough. We need to now start thinking about, okay, what steps would she take to get the kingdom of Uther? And we need to think about this sometimes in a little bit of a lateral way. But what I like to do is I like to go step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. That's it. 4 steps. Step 1, I think, and again, this is something that is coming off of the top of my head. I haven't planned any of this, and it is a demonstration in how simple and easy it is, and how we can come back to it and change it later. Step 1. We have these protectors of Uther who are proving to be problematic. Okay? They are proving to be problematic. So, we need, or at least Jakar needs, to eliminate the protectors of Uther. Eliminate the protectors of Uther. Okay. Easier said than done. Of course it's easier said than done, because it's providing her with difficulty. So we need to eliminate the protectors of Uther. We need to, I would say, convince the dukes to betray the king. I like that idea. We need to convince the dukes to betray the king. The reason why we need to do this is because obviously a destabilized kingdom is a kingdom that can be easily overrun and that can easily be destroyed. We're also using Slard forces, and as we know from a video that I made a couple of weeks ago, Slard are shapeshifters. So either we convince the dukes to betray the king or we replace the dukes. So convince, I'm going to take away convince and I'm going to say replace the dukes of the king with Slard doppelgangers. All right. So all I'm doing is I'm working through my head what the nemesis needs to do in order to achieve their goal. What do they need to do? All right, so we need to eliminate the protectors of Uther. Check. We need to replace the dukes of the king with Slard doppelgangers. Check. What else do we need to do? Perhaps, in terms of the dragon eggs themselves, perhaps, and this is where we're now starting to expand our story. We're starting to expand our theory. Perhaps now the dukes... Perhaps the eggs, the dragon eggs that we're after, perhaps they are in a sacred place. And we don't know where they are, or is it more interesting if we know where they are? Alright, so we need to do something that pertains to the eggs. Getting the eggs, finding the eggs, replacing the eggs, stealing the eggs, breaking the eggs, abducting the eggs. We've got dukes being replaced. We're eliminating the protectors. So if I were to think laterally, we go back to the 4 types of adventures that you can have. And if you haven't watched that video, you certainly should have a look at it. But we have thwarting, collecting, delivering, and investigating, discovering. So maybe we need to discover the location of the eggs. So discover the location of the dragon eggs, because maybe they've been lost. Maybe Uther doesn't even know that the dragon eggs are there. That's more interesting, perhaps. So we need to discover the location of the dragon eggs, and that they exist at all. And so then that leaves us with collecting the eggs, or... well, she's taking over the entire kingdom to get the eggs. So that means that the eggs are not very easy to get to. So then it would be excavating the... Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm leaping ahead of myself here. It would then be invading the kingdom with an army. Right. That wasn't too painful. I mean, it was bad, but it wasn't that bad. And hopefully, if you're looking at your page, you're not blanking out. Remember, you can always insert a giant banana. Maybe it's part of getting the banana. Maybe it's getting the banana. It's eating the banana. It's using the banana to do something. Ah, now the little gears start to turn, perhaps. So we list 4 things. That's all we need. 4 steps that this Jakar is going to take in order to get the eggs. Once she's got the eggs, there have been so many theories, and I love some of the theories that the Slagash who's on her back is actually using her to get to the egg, and it's going to eat the egg, and it will transcend. There's some wonderful theories going on there, and we can add those in. We don't need them now. What we need now is we need to say, okay, once she's got the egg, then what? What is then the next step? And this is where we're going to complicate matters purposefully so that our players have time to respond. And that's the important thing. So let's go back to our theme, greed. Once she has the egg, what does she need to do with the egg in order to gain power? Well, it's along the lines of greed. Either she needs to make more eggs or she needs to make the egg bigger. I'm not sure how that works. Or perhaps she needs more eggs. Not just one. Maybe there's more than one egg in terms of the process. Or perhaps she's going to amplify the power of the egg. She's greedy for more power. I like that idea better. I think it's going to give us more options. So she's going to try and make the egg more. She's going to try and put more energy into the egg. So she's going to try and infuse the egg. I like that. And in order to do that, she's going to need some components. So when we look at building it, we now assume that she has got her objective or is close to getting her objective. And we're going to come back to what happens if the players have stopped this from happening. But let's assume that she has got the egg in one shape or form. She is now going to embellish it. So whatever your story, the villain needs to try and get it first. Once they've got it, they then need to have a plan of what they're going to do with it. And generally speaking, they need to do more than just one thing. Never will a villain just get something. If you look at, say, Dr. Evil from the Austin Powers movies, even if he got his money, he would then still have more things to do. Or if he got that special laser chip or whatever to then implant into his machine, it would still require a series of steps to happen before it actually fired. That's what we need to do. Those are the things that we need to break our campaign ideas down into. So with building it, we've now worked out we want to infuse that egg with more power. So to do that, we need to find the elvish, I don't know why, artifact. Oh, I know why. Fact, I've been playing Dragon Age, and there are elvish artifacts all over the place that don't seem to do anything. They're in the game, and there's lots of stuff about, oh, we need to activate the artifact, but it doesn't actually seem to do anything. So anyway, not that I've seen. If you know, please let me know. It's killing me. Find the elvish artifact to infuse the dragon egg with more power. We are going to need to transport the egg to the holy site. Because obviously she's not going to, I have the egg. She's not going to eat it straight away. That is never going to happen. It has to be put into a box, put onto a wagon with highly incompetent guards who are going to then very slowly take a very long and laborious route around things rather than just, say, putting it on the back of a wyvern and flying it direct. It's going to take a long, circuitous route. Why? The players' characters need to interfere. They need to win. So we've got to give them as much opportunity as we possibly can. So they're going to transport the egg to the holy site. They're going to construct the holy site. Maybe that is what they need to do. They need to find this site. It needs to be done at the top of a mountain by a full moon, the light of the full moon. These things always got complications for that very reason. We then need to, I always go with 4 for these things. Okay, construct the holy site, transport the egg to the holy site, get the elvish artifact, and then we need to go through the entire process of aligning the artifact with the site, because, well, Stonehenge didn't just happen in a day. Then I like to break it down into 3 steps for the next 2 phases. Or 4 steps. It depends on how you work. There's no hard and fast rule. I would never do less than 3 steps. So then we move into the testing. So now we have the egg, we have the thing, it's all working great. Except we need to make sure that this is going to work. She needs to test out her powers, perhaps. This is an option that I like to always add in because, again, it buys us just a little bit of time. When she's using this egg, this is the only dragon egg of its kind in the universe as far as she is concerned. She's not going to risk it. So perhaps, firstly, she is going to test the process on a... I'm thinking of a monster. Slard is the idea. So on a slard egg. All right, she's going to test the idea on a slard egg because, well, that's a good thing to test it on. Slard have featured in the campaign already. They've been established. She has them around. She's going to do that. So she tests the process on a slard egg. It works, but there's a complication. It doesn't do exactly what she wants it to do. So she's going to add something. Because remember, it's always either yes and or no but. Yes but or no and. So yes, the process works, but the artifact is broken. So repair the artifact. Okay? It works, but breaks artifact. Again, just buying time for our players if they haven't got to this point yet. Repair the artifact, and then the third one will be, because we don't want to do it too many times, I would say this is test the process on a... I'm trying to think of a terrifying option here. Let's say... because Slard is pretty terrifying all around. Let's say on a... can't use another dragon egg. Can't be another dragon egg. What monster is particularly scary? On a beholder. A beholder egg. Because, I don't know, she has access to them. It works. Right. Now, this is where we get to the stock standard conclusion, and this is, as far as I'm concerned, pretty much the same regardless of what type of campaign you are running. It is tie up loose ends, plan and strategy, and attack, and then this one is the showdown. So when we look at this as it is, and let me scroll up a little bit so it's sitting just over my shoulder. I hope you can read that. So I have now gone through, in the space of, 30 minutes, so it has taken a little bit of time. I have now gone through this process of creating, if you notice behind me, we now have 14 adventures. 14 adventures, at the very least, for our campaign. If each adventure takes 1 session, that's 14 sessions. That's pretty good going. That's 3 months worth, or almost 4 months worth of role-playing that you've just plotted out. Now all we need to do is take each one of these and break them down into adventures. Absolutely sure that's what we need to do. No doubt about it. And in what order these take place, when we go back here, eliminate the protectors of Uther, replace the dukes of the king with Slard doppelgangers, discover the location of the dragon eggs and that they exist at all, invading the kingdom with an army. Each one of these can get broken down into multiple adventures as well. We don't have to just run them as singular adventures. So what you're going to see, and we're going to be talking about this in upcoming videos, but what you're going to see is that by the end of it, we're going to have at least 30 adventures before we've even started writing the first one. So that we have a massive campaign with a whole lot of adventures, and that we have the ability to change things. So now, when we look at it and we say, okay, eliminating the protectors of Uther, that could be an adventure, it could be a single adventure. In which case, we need to introduce the Protectors of Uther to the players. We need to introduce that the Protectors of Uther are being assassinated by the Jakar's evil assassins, and that the players somehow need to be able to either save the Protectors, or they fail to save the Protectors and the last Protector is destroyed. Now, handing the banner over to the players' characters, for example. If the players succeed and the Protectors of Uther are not eliminated, what does that do to our whole plot? Does it cause it to come crumbling down around our ears? No, it doesn't. It causes Jakar to sit back and go, "Who prevented the destruction of the Protectors of Uther? Find them and destroy them. We will continue to replace the dukes with slard doppelgangers. The Protectors are an irritation, but they're not critical." So we can now follow along. We now have another adventure that comes out of our heroes being successful. They are now being hunted by emissaries or mercenaries from Jakar, whilst at the same time the replacement of the dukes continues. Once our players start to get wind, they survive the assassins, and we decide it's time to move on to the second adventure in our master plot series, we can now start to look at how do we introduce the idea of the dukes being replaced by slard doppelgangers. Again, if the players succeed, none of this stops Jakar's plan, it just makes it more difficult for her, in theory, because it's all in your head as to how difficult it is for Jakar to succeed. She's an NPC fighting other NPCs. So now she turns her attention to the PCs. "They have discovered my plans and destroyed my operations for a second time. Destroy them with all of our might. We will continue to search for the dragon eggs." So she can continue, and she can continue, and she can continue. When we find the elvish artifact that's going to infuse the dragon egg with more power later on, if the PCs capture that artifact before she gets there, if they destroy the artifact before she gets there, she will find another artifact. She will find another way of doing it. It will be more complicated, but she will be more adamant about crushing and destroying the PCs than before. In other words, we will find workarounds that Jakar goes through, but as a direct influence, as a direct result of what the players are doing. If she never gets the egg in the first place, perhaps she will start to look for alternatives, other myths, other legends of these fabled eggs that are out there, that will get the players to go on that journey. And all that we're doing is whenever the players succeed, an additional adventure is added to our list of our nemesis now trying to overcome that barrier that's been presented to them by the players. By the players' characters' actions, Jakar now has to go and do X first before she can return to her plan. Your nemesis with this plan should always be set back by the players and then move forward by offering another adventure, another opportunity for the players to defeat the character. The only time the nemesis is ever truly defeated is if they're killed and your campaign does not have means for a resurrection. If it's a science fiction campaign, the emperor is dead. Well, actually there's a clone. The Jakar is slain and destroyed by the players. Fantastic. What's the next adventure? The next adventure is where they start down the trail of a strange cult who is trying to resurrect her because they believed in her goals, and once she is resurrected, she is going to go straight back to her plan. So you can always come back to your master plot series by having it listed as this. It allows you to see where you are, where you need to go, and how you need to come back to it. The important thing, of course, as well, is that we save. We should save. That you save, but that we are not going to go any further than this in terms of adventure development other than Adventure 1. Eliminate the Protectors of Uther. If that is the adventure that we are choosing to start our campaign on, if we believe that that is the adventure that sets the tone and the theme for our entire campaign, that is the one that we will now take and we will develop and flesh out for use in our first adventure. And it doesn't matter. It could be discovering the location of the dragon eggs. It could be replacing the dukes with slard doppelgangers. It could be eliminating the Protectors of Uther. It doesn't matter. Any one of those three could very well work as the opening of our adventure series, of our entire campaign. Even the invading the kingdom with an army could work, but I feel that we need to go through those other 3 steps first so that we get the sense that there is this malicious, evil presence actively working against the players. So I would do that. I would also have Jakar as being a member of nobility who is actively acting against the players throughout this, because we said that she was going to be a blunt force trauma nemesis. So I would introduce her into this as that. Again, though, this is nothing that's committed. There's nothing that is guaranteed yet from the player's perspective, and that's where we need to keep it for now. So now you should have 14 or 15 adventures just waiting to burst out of the page for your campaign. Next week, when we continue with the Campaign Creator series, we're going to be looking at the next step, which is basically the very first steps of world building. So don't miss that one. Until next time, I wish you and yours the very happiest and devious of campaign creating.